Well, welcome to the first of 2026 Open Poetry and Fiction Reading. Glad to have everybody here. I'm Tom Laughlin, coordinator of the Creative Writing Program, and want to shout out some thanks to the Office of Student Engagement who co-sponsors this, and Creative Writing Program as well. But our director of Office of Student Engagement, Maria McDuffie Clark, want to thank also Dean of Liberal Arts, Matt Hurwitz, English Department Chair, Jill Keller, the Director of Communications and Creative Services, who helps get word out on things and helps us with signs and other things, Beth Noel and her staff, and Jeff Kaplan and these wonderful people helping us out to record for posterity's sake. I'm excited to have a number of poets and fiction writers and creative nonfiction writers here to share their work. And we want to create a warm and welcoming atmosphere here at Middlesex to celebrate the amazing voices. And so let people hear it and give some snaps or claps or other things. They'd probably love to hear some feedback also afterwards maybe, so think about what you can offer and mainly sit back and enjoy. We will start off with Willow Kelley. Let's hear it for Willow.
Is this where we're standing? Is this what we're doing? Okay.
Sure. We can hear you.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is a poem I wrote about the pandemic and self-isolation, so enjoy. To be alone with oneself, or some similar type of bullshit. We spent the year mourning the loss of company, learned to enjoy our own or combust. I am still in the midst of my detonation. I am the remaining wreckage of the past 5 years, relearning how to walk and speak like the human I once was. Most would see this as a chance to reinvent, to construct a new person from the carnage of oneself, but I can't seem to figure out where the pieces go, what to tack on to the hollow body I once lived in. I have no manual or book of brainstormed ideas from the year's turmoil. I am somehow more empty than the days I spent alone. I can only blame myself for that. It hurts more that I can't find someone to lean on, something to prop me up, when everyone is eager to return to their before, and I'm stuck wondering if it's worth returning to, or if it would matter if I chose not to. Thank you.
Thanks for starting us off, Willow. Our next reader is Nick Todd, some fiction. Nick.
All right, I have a piece of fiction. I'm just gonna get right into it. The title is Something to Remember Her By. Why are you making this so difficult? Sebastian says. He pulls a 1974 edition of Times Magazine out of a box overflowing with decades of editions. I mean, come on, this is clearly junk. I'm not making this difficult. You just don't understand, Rebecca says. She crosses her arms and flips a lock of blonde hair out of her face so she can properly glare at Sebastian. Yeah, you're right. He rubs the brown fuzz on his head, turning to survey the room. The room is filled with boxes, bins, and random objects stacked to the ceiling, and almost covering the stained and matted, not-so-lime green carpet. The two of them stand near the entrance to the room at the edge of the slope of stuff. Sebastian grimaces at the smell of mold and the disaster in front of him. I know what this looks like to you, Rebecca says, arms still crossed over her Amherst sweater, but this isn't just junk to me. He sighs. I get that and all, he says, tilting his head to look over his shoulder at Rebecca, but living like this? He gestures at the wave, with a wave at the chaos. I don't care, she says and turns away from Sebastian. She bends down to open a bin and leans the lid against another nearby box. And besides, it's not like I never get rid of anything. She starts pulling random shoes out of the bin and inspecting them before putting them back. Oh yeah? Sebastian says, raising an eyebrow at her. So Rebecca looks back and frowns at Sebastian. Oh, shut up. He scoffs. I'm just saying. Rebecca springs up and whips around to face Sebastian. Saying what, she says, jabbing an old soulless sneaker into his chest, that I can't take care of myself? Sebastian, surprised, steps back and trips on a small wooden box of CDs on the floor. He falls backwards, but only falls halfway to the floor before he's caught by the surrounding piles of stuff. Rebecca smirks. See? All that junk just saved your life. That better not be the lesson you're taking from this, he says as he tries to get up. His efforts instead sink him deeper. He reaches out a hand. Little help? Rebecca rolls her eyes, but reaches out to help him. With their help, Sebastian gets back to his feet and dusts off his jeans and hoodie. God, this place is awful, he says under his breath, shaking his head slightly. You aren't even the one who collected all this crap, so why are you so attached? He puts his hand in his hoodie pocket, frowns, takes out a frog pin, looks at it, and tosses it over his shoulder. You know why. Well, yeah, I know the circumstances, he says, while clearing a small collection of novelty watches and empty Tic Tac containers off a box. But I'm not asking about why you have it. He sits down on his box, facing Rebecca, silhouetted in the doorway by the lights in the kitchen. She looks away. I don't know. She picks up a random object, a belt. This stuff is all I have to remember her by. She turns away from Sebastian, and he sees her wipe her eyes with her sleeve. Seeing his friend in pain, Sebastian gets up and goes to her. He puts a hand on her shoulder. I know it's hard, and I want to help, but you need to let go. He pauses for a moment. We'll find something better to remember her by somewhere in here. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. And our next reader is Sofia Fariole. Sofia.
Hello. I do want to issue a small trigger warning for this poem with mentions of suicide and suicidal ideation, so if that's something so if that's something that might be uncomfortable for some people, feel free to step out. This poem is entitled 2 a.m. 2 a.m. on a Monday. I roll over to check my phone. The artificial light blinds my eyes. 5 messages from my family, 4 missed calls from mom, 3 people calling me fat, 2 story replies slut-shaming me, and 1 stranger telling me to kill myself. And maybe it's because I was in the wrong. Did they not like my tune? Did they not like my song? Were they jealous of the light in my eyes? Because they were the ones who stole it and planted the seeds of my demise. The words get old, but the message remains. I couldn't begin to tally every insult tied to my name. But what more could I have done? How could I have possibly pleased everyone? I recite each word I wish that I said, suicidal thoughts swirling in my head, thoughts that landed me in a hospital bed at the ripe age of 14 on psychiatric meds, because I couldn't help but think that I'd be better off dead. Thoughts that got me addicted to nicotine. I do just about anything for a rush of dopamine. No matter how reckless or obscene, I just wanted to be seen. Memories swim in circles, crashing like waves on every inch of my brain. A societal sea of opinions and ideologies. I go from distracting to drastically numb, and I watch as the world closes in around me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia. Our next reader is Emma Olson. Emma.
Woo!
Hi. This is a poem I wrote called Consumption. I toll in the field like a bell. Chapped, rotting fingers wrap round reams of wheat. Gold like the sun in the day, the stars at night, my favorite. The dark hurts less. Body aches, stomach empty and ill, and yet I am endless. No longer the need to eat, to be alive. no longer the need for anything to be alive. But now especially, what is life? It starts in the lungs, necrotic gangrene, inside out like new life, from clusters of spider egg jelly. The thought, we will all die. Time, like a cough building in the lungs that never comes. No one dies, not from the rotting, not from anything ever again. I reap wheat while souls cannot be, while the barons and oligarchs brew. From the wheat, their ichor ambrosia, to stay young, keep beautiful, though no one needs true sustenance, they need their youth while we do not. I watch the son of the baron for whom I sow, with hair gold like the wheat I cannot eat. He watches back, endless, beautiful, blue eyes made from chips of tourmaline. Will he ever know, skin, bones, rotting face, sluiced and peeling? Perhaps in our lifetimes we will see it and be free. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Our next reader is Amelia Van Der Hyde. Amelia, let's hear it.
Hello, my name is Amelia, and I'll be reading a nonfiction. Okay, so here's how it goes. You need to change that, my mom says to me. She's standing outside of the doorway to my room as I look on. I look downward and notice my shirt. It's a black t-shirt with 3 colorful horizontal blocks in a cuddly line. They say in a matter-of-fact voice in uppercase, NPR. I can't see what's so wrong. It's a simple radio station. My mother knows better than I. Not everybody is as progressive as us. Today we are going to a friend's house, and I can't possibly risk a living faux pas like a slightly political t-shirt. My friend Mary had invited us, so I couldn't help but think it would probably be fine. My friend Mary, an adult, went to the same church as me, and also was homeschooled like me. Nevertheless, I nodded grumpily and closed the door to get the job done. My room then and now is a small yellow rectangle. At least I own an unlimited amount of shirts. With a solemn mood befitting that of anyone having their free speech clothing rights infringed on, I put on something much more bland. The rain, miles per hour, and the German urge to be 15 minutes early for every function, where the anxiety is waiting for my family on a 30-minute ride to my friend Mary's house. My family crammed themselves into our very own Toyota. My family somehow made it on time, with minutes to spare. My friend's parents' house was large and a bit fancy. I should say I would define a fancy house as one that has at least 2 bathrooms. This is mostly because my family lives in a Hobbit equivalent home. The house had a kitchen with a beautiful long table with only the best snacks. Oh, speak not of the beautiful TV room and the whole basement dedicated to the pursuit of storing random items and art. They even had glass ice cream cups that Kevin McAllister would die for. For dinner, we had burgers on the back porch. My family and hers munched and talked. There were little mats dedicated to different subjects underneath the Slavic burger fillings. One had a picture of different ballet positions. Mary used to be a ballet dancer, said Mary's mother, a woman with slightly quiet demeanor and a bobbed brown hair. My mother says, I can see that. She has great posture. Another mat is dedicated to presidents. I'm pretty sure I say something like, a list of all the presidents? Cool! To which Mary's parents replied, oh, you like that? And to which I replied, yes, I love history. Weeks later, church has just ended, and my friend Mary comes to talk to me. Church operates in an old mill, so I stand outside the pews into the wall. The bricks make their way up and along the windows. My parents had a question about your parents, Mary says with a smile. Sure, I said. What? Are your parents right or left in politics? She says. It spells trouble when someone asks you about political alignments. Deep in my soul, I know it was because I talked about presidents. Right or left, I muttered. Can you define right or left? I know what they mean in politics, but not what they represent in terms of Republican or Democrat. Mary cuts in. It's okay if you don't understand. No, I say, taking it as a challenge and a bruise to my political ego. Well, I know my parents are conservative, but not in a MAGA way or anything. My friend nods knowingly. The whole dumb set of events makes me ask, why do we needlessly censor ourselves for others' sake? When people are invited over to a stranger's home, they should show their allegiance to a political party with any clothing. Little Sarah can supply ketchup on her Feel the Burn Bernie Sanders 2035 shirt. Or for the others, wear a Make America Great Again hat and tip it to the gracious host. Then you can blow your staff without worry. It saves everyone the smoke and mirrors of hidden strange political opinions. The worst thing that could possibly happen is the host never talk to you again and you leave without any snacks. If you would rather be sneaky, you could wear a shirt that declares you enjoy the radio station NPR. At least then people will know where you stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia.
Yes, very.
Our next reader is Joseph Nardoni. Joe.
Thank you, Tom. I have a couple for you today. They are ekphrastic poems, and unfortunately I couldn't get the artwork to display, so I'm going to have to describe the artwork to you first. So, I want you to think of a painting of cactus, prickly pear cactus, and their flowers and their fruits displayed, and then superimposed over it is the clear female bodice that holds a leather bustier kind of corset kind of thing. All right? And I saw this painting at an art show called Unmentionables at Western Avenue Studios, and I wrote this poem in response to that, and I call it Among the Cactus Flowers. I woke before you this morning after all the door-stopped dates, when things shifted, and saw your leather cast out into the prickly pears blooming in the courtyard. Their flowers splayed open like your blonde hair on the pillow, while dawn's gray welcome brightened to yellow. Sometime after our tentative touchings, while I slept, you prowled awake like a cat getting used to a new pet, buckled it to the dress form that had guarded your door like an emperor's suit of armor when we laughed our way inside last night. Now yellow blooms showed through invisible shoulders. The way to your heart finally opened to me like buds bursting sunlight in my palms. And I know the pink fruit you have offered me is worth every thorn-stabbed hole in my skin. Okay, so I'm going to get political here. So this painting, this photograph that I wrote about was called Speak Out. It's photographed by Bruce Wood, and photographer and artist at the Western Avenue Studios. And imagine this. You see the Supreme Court building. There's a fence in front of it. And then in front of that fence is a young boy, maybe 8 to 10 years old, wearing a striped shirt, shouting into one of those old-time flat microphones. Okay. And so I wrote this in response to that, and my title of my poem is, Sometimes Children Have More Wisdom. I left junior high's history whitewashed behind, landed on the AP shore of democracy's disappointment. Some people granted 3/5 of their humanity so they could be cultured with whips and rapes by the partially human overseers who needed a deal. So listen, amplified child in the foreground shouting, the nuanced noggins behind the fence know that a law is not the law until it comes to court. And so they act like they must reject that simple truth are given to adjudicate cause and effect. That is why they will not hear you and call it stare decisis until they change it. And when the winds of minority blowhards fork red cloud lightning above that hall of justice, and 6 robes decline their titles so political hacks can turn their porcupine backs on you, keep amplifying your truth and spread it all over town and tell the folks to shove it who want to shut you down, and learn to bob and weave and dodge the flying hands of outraged, shamed adults who should know better where they stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our next reader is Elizabeth Moot. Elizabeth.
Hi everybody! This is a short scene from a prompt we did in class where it was to write from the perspective of an inanimate object, so it's going to get weird. Our canvas skin is stretched and stapled so that we may hold a small eternity. Our pock marks are smoothed by chalk and glue, the gelatinous reduction of a boiled rabbit. It is our rigid backbone, panels made from a poplar tree, holding us taut as we are remodeled for a final time. This is our body, the dead collective of flax, flesh, and timber. We wobble while primed, waiting in silence and darkness for the spark of meaning again. The wet filling dries over our skin just as earth bakes under a summer sun. Only our skin cares for the given name of its source. A flat field, a cropland where the word linseed oil was uttered so often the buds mistook it for where they grew rather than what they could one day be. It was our field, fertile and cultivated, in a place called Italy. We shall continue calling it so on behalf of their memory, of the man who wrestled our roots free, bundled us and carted us away. In the mornings, the sun's heat was blocked in his shape until our skin recognized him. In the evening cool, his heat joined another's heat, until one day he exhaled a vibration of air that tickled our skin's mature stems. The vibrations were like a soft wind when he said she was a one-of-a-kind, the most divine creature of all of Italy, and that he was the luckiest man in the world. We had only known the land anchoring us as a waking dream echoed up through the dirt, the essence of hunter-gatherers, ice sheets, dinosaurs, and winged giants that had devolved into the same simple soil. When the sun rose again, the man returned and severed us from them. But our skin learned from the impressions rolled into our stems that the shape of a man and a divine creature, their shapes move differently alive, hot and clumsy, compared to the bloodless ones lying still beneath the dirt. We are smeared with a blend of oxides mined from a deep pit. It's thinned out, laid over the chalk and rabbit sealant and blocks. Like the chalk, it's not formally alive, but it carries the essence of things that were, the thundering march of 3 empires, the tired march of a 4th, and the rain of their blood that soaked through every rocky crevice and crack. The vibrations that correlate to these empires were not retained by the oxides, only the new accumulation of iron. There is a low vibration that calls the blend burnt umber. It is applied more thickly over the thin blocks, in lines like cliff sides, a natural defense, the tiny specks of iron whisper to the rest of us. Vertical lines shoot upwards, quick and like a steel spearhead. There is a smooth air vibration that asks, what comes next? Our skin is tickled by hog bristles, one of which is trapped under wet globs of pigment. Its life is encapsulated underneath the pigment, and it soothes its short-lived soul like a barn's pen. There are round swoops like sweet chestnuts the hog once tasted, and gentle curves like the tastiest flour the rabbit had ever eaten. We feel a curved droop at its end, like a delicate dewdrop before it slipped down a petal and into the rabbit's fur. The low vibrations give these names, eyes and nose, and later on there are philtrum, lips, and chin. They come rough and quick, in with thick strokes of burnt umber. The smooth air vibration responds, make me beautiful so I'll be worth the paint. Quick puffs of air vibrations overlap that bounce around our body like chattering birds in a tree canopy. It dies down as the hog bristles revisit old lines in silence, and we wait. More pigments, more names, swirling together on a wood board. We are unsure if yellow, ochre, and lead white become new, or if they are unfinished until that cautious dab of Paris green is fused to them. There is a pigment, ultramarine blue, that was a precious stone from a deposit in a valley with a rushing tributary. The same valley has been chipped at, the passage of time told through vibrations, pounding for a time older than all 4 empires that had risen and fallen over rocks. The fragments that make ultramarine blue had heard the mining all that time. waiting as the click of tool against rock grew louder until finally it was their turn. We joined to see more clearly what great task we have all been selected to hold. Our body feels the forms laid over us, and from the depths of our collective, the single hog bristle lost underneath layers and layers of paint recalls an animal of similar shape. It had a glowing face like a moon and sparse hair, and perhaps its bushy tail had grown out from the top of its skull. It gave apples and sweet chestnuts and had a soft call. Layer by layer, the buildup of color and shape is pieced together by us. Vermilion, yellows, and browns blend into the tumbling fibers that wave like waterfalls. Nobody has ever asked to paint me. The fibers fall over a round, peachy face that rests against the back of their hand. I'm nobody important or beautiful. Another set of boar's bristles dapple light around their form. Our skin feels the outlines, smaller and more sloped than the man who'd blocked out the sun we'd always turn to, the heat, the source of life. Lighter and lighter, swirl the pigments that form a haze around them until it is them, their form, that glows, like it could make the four corners of our body warm. I don't know what you see in me. The tickling brush stops with finality. We are at last finished, to hold her gently for all eternity, even if one day we return to the ground or burn up to be released into the sky. But we will remember the eternity it took, the ceaseless natural cycles, to form this exact body that has not existed in any of our combined histories. We are one of a kind, a divine creature our maker found worth the paint. Yay!
Thank you, Elizabeth. Our next reader is Cait Bentley. Cait.
So this isn't an original poem. It's by Oscar Wilde, my favorite poet. It is, pardon my French, Impression du Matin. The Thames nocturne of blue and gold changed to a harmony in gray. A barge with ochre-colored hay dropped from the wharf in chilling cold. The yellow fog came creeping down the bridges till the house's walls seemed changed to shadows in St. Paul's, loomed like a bubble o'er the town. Then suddenly arose the clang of waking life. The streets were stirred with country wagons, and a bird flew to the glistening roofs and sang. But one pale woman, all alone, to daylight kissing her wan hair, loitered beneath the gas lamp's flare, with lips of flame and heart of stone.
Thanks, Cait. And our next reader is Becky Peterson.
So I'll be reading my first chapter as much as I can from my book, When Worlds Collide, A Fallen Starling. I have my friend who's going to tell me when 5 minutes are up.
1 second. Alrighty. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Starting it now.
Chapter 1, Her Last Step on Earth, Amber. I slam the door hard enough that it rattles in its frame, but the sound doesn't satisfy me. My breathing comes in rapid bursts. The fury is growing hard to bear. My entire body is shaking like there's a storm raging inside me, a storm that's going to burst. My hands have been trembling at my sides, fists clenched so hard that my fingernails cut into my palms. The door is meant to be a barrier, protection against her, to separate us. But I can still hear her voice through the wood. Amber, we're not done talking, she shouts from the other side of the wood. slightly muffling her voice. Her tone is sharp and hard like always. Again, hold on, I skipped a piece. Sharp and hard like always. My throat tightens and I squeeze my eyes shut, pressing my back against the door. Why did it always have to be like this? In every argument with her, it was like layers of me are being stripped away. Whatever I am, she takes apart in pieces, making me feel just not good enough. Not good ever. I inhale deeply, but it doesn't calm me. It simply stirs up the fury. I could hear her pacing back and forth in the hallway, her every step bringing her closer and closer to the door until at last she would fling it open and order me to finish our conversation, finish dismantling me. I'm not wasting my life, I snarl, retching the words from the ether. My chest was all but crushed, as if all the breath in the world has been squeezed out of the room. I narrow my eyes, focus my gaze upon the four loyal corners of my own bedroom. A room that has seen every scream, every tear, every moment when I have torn it to pieces. There's a hard hit at the door and I wince. Amber, she calls out, impatient now, you can't just shut me out every time we have a conversation you don't like. A bitter laugh bubbles up in my throat. Conversation was the last thing that is happening. A constant repetition of the same speech. Pressure swirls around me, as always. I push away from the doorway and start pacing. My mind is reeling from every statement she had made downstairs. An itch trails up my skin as if I could ever shed it. I'm not letting this go. Her voice was nearing, hovering just beyond my door. You're not taking anything seriously, Amber. You're almost an adult, but you're still acting like a child. That is it. I whip around and storm towards the door and yank the door open, glaring at her. Maybe if you treated me like an adult, I'll stop feeling like a child. Her eyes narrowed. She stood in the hallway with her arms crossed, while her sharp green eyes displayed their typical expression of letdown, which looks like I failed her again. I could practically feel it radiating off her. The harsh light of the hallway cast sharp shadows over her face. I'm not done. I used the word I can't pronounce. The accentuating, the tight, I don't know.
Keep going, you got this.
The tight set of her jaw, the tension in her shoulders, her dark brown hair was pulled into a severe bun, not a strand out of place. Like, even her appearance had to be perfectly controlled. She always looked so put together, as if every piece of her life was so neatly slotted where it's supposed to be. And she expects me to be the same. I'm treating you like someone who has no idea what's going to happen to them after high school, she said. Her voice is clipped and cool. You're 17, Amber. You don't have time to just float through life anymore. I'm not floating through life, I shout, stepping forward, my fists clenched at my sides. Just because I'm not obsessed with getting straight A's or planning my whole future doesn't mean I'm not trying. Really? She raised an eyebrow. Her voice is dripping with sarcastic disbelief that always drives me crazy.
Becky,
We're done?
we're done.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank you, Becky.
Perfect sentence.
Our next reader is Willy Ramirez.
Woo!
Hello. I'm going to be reading translations that I made from English to Spanish, In this instance, I translated an African-American poet named Kayahimba Jess. He's a well-known African-American writer who revives stories of African-American artists in the 1800s and early 1900s. So in this case, this is a poem about Ciceretta Jones, who was an opera singer in the late 1800s, early 1900s. She was well known, she was well paid, and she was known for having a strong presence on stage and voice. So this is, in this poem, she touches on racial issues and discrimination and attempts to not give credit and erasure. So you'll notice. So I'm going to read the original first in respect of the language of the poet, in which the poet writes. So that is English, and then I'll follow with a translation. It's a short poem, it should be about 2 minutes each. My name is Ciceretta Jones. Once a word got out about the way I sing, the world wanted to bleed all the sass out my name, to scratch out the gift my mother gave me and shove a would-be white diva in my spotlight. They couldn't imagine the colored in coloratura just standing on its own on stage. So they claimed I was just part of Adelina Party, which was another famous white artist. They stuck me beneath her name, a shadow sentenced to the borders of her light, called me Black Patty. But the darkened sense inside my name won't be silenced. With its sister and shush and gospel of ocean, I sing each night from the way I have stand on the docks of Providence. A struggle bundle of lungs and tremble, lifting wave after wave into wave after wave of Atlantic. Its applause keeled over me, calling me with its bell of salt, its belly of sunken holes, its blue rain phantoms of tremolo. Every night in the dark off stage, I hear my mother's voice in my head, her backyard hum, the sea in her distance with the weather of storm. She would look out and see the thrall of water heave its back to the sky. I would look out the darkness and hear my true name. And this is the translation to Spanish. Mi nombre es Ciceretta Jones. Cuando se corrió la voz sobre mi forma de cantar, el mundo quiso apagar toda mi chispa. Intentaron borrar el don que me dio mi madre y colocar en mi lugar a una presunta diva blanca. No podían concebir una mujer negra brillando por sí sola en el escenario con su coloratura. Así que dijeron que yo no era más que simplemente parte del coro de Adelina Party. Me encasillaron bajo su nombre, una sombra sentenciada a los límites de su luz. Me apodaron Party la Negra. Pero la oscura esencia del interior de mi nombre no será silenciada. Acompañado de su hermana y su sutil murmullo, y su evangelio de océano, canto cada noche desde la forma en que solía prepararme en los muelles de Providencia, un conjunto de olas tras olas del Atlántico. Su aplauso me abrumó, llamándome con su campana de trémolo. Cada noche, en la oscuridad detrás del escenario, escucho la voz de mi madre en mi mente, su zumbido en el patio, el mar en su distancia, con un clima de tormenta. Ella miraba hacia afuera y veía el encanto del agua alzar su espalda hacia el cielo. Yo miraba hacia afuera en la oscuridad y escuchaba mi nombre verdadero. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Our next reader is Michelle Whalen. Michelle.
Sorry. Hello, Becky. I just want to say one friend gave me advice when I graduated high school. He said, don't just float through life, make waves. So I feel confident you're going to do that in your own time. And so I have a piece called Resistance. And all right. Resistance is in my nature. I was born to a woman whose insistence on me becoming her clone was so imposing that I created my own disorder called oppositional defiance. Turns out that's really a thing. Oppositional defiance disorder can result from being raised by a narcissistic personality disorder. So much disorder in the world to resist. Resist the dumbing down of America. Resist the order of the oligarchy. Resist the people who want to take us back to the dark ages. Resist those who would impose their will on those who wish to not receive it and wish to just be left alone. Resist the patriarchy, but also resist a knee-jerk reaction and swinging the pendulum too far in the other direction. Resistance to logic, science, and empathy would be a crime if I were in charge of the new world, my utopian society much like our own, but where politicians must be peer-reviewed experts in their field they are representing, and pushing false information through intention or willful ignorance would be a capital crime, punishable by your choice of education or death. What's wrong with building a society where the underdog has a choice? Get educated or be ostracized from society and imprisoned until you can converse like an informed adult with critical thinking skills. Resist people who refuse to make themselves better, to evolve. Resist all temptations to sympathize with ignorance. Resist those who only wish to watch the world burn. Equal and opposite reactions must be used to resist opposing forces like an eye for an eye. By the by, resist the fucking AI. Resist the urge to pretend you have no common sense. Resist the urge to take the easy path and resist backwards progress. Resist giving in to the guilt society says you should feel from wanting to take a nap once in a while after all the hard work you've done. Resist the social structure that says we should work 60 or even 40 hours a week and we'll still be unable to afford a home to live in without finding 4 other people paying people to live with. Resist the employers who say they need us to come into the office 1,000% of the time, for that is just the kind of bullshit that we must resist. Control for the sake of control. Do not allow it to persist. Resist ones who say, but it's your family, because they have no fucking clue what toxic, persistent existence I've lived that left my brain resistant to reality and twisted downwards into negativity. Resistance is only futile when you resist to any resistance efforts and just give up. Resist the urge to stop before you're done, or you may as well just resist even starting. Think about that.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next reader is Katie Woods. Katie.
The thing I'm reading is a short fiction that I made, and it's called The Weatherman. It's alright. It started off as any sunny day, 50 years in the future, in New York City. People were jogging in the park, ordering their afternoon treats at the baker shop, talking to friends in Times Square. Many people enjoyed their morning constitutional on the new sidewalks that the city installed. It was 10 inches wider than previously, even though the street did not decrease in size. Some people smiled as they viewed signs that were submitted for the 180th birthday for the New York Public Library. It was a science contest from the kindergarten class of 2075, which were mostly pictures of happy people in the sun and small, sad people in a cartoon jail cell with their little rain clouds over their heads. The winner was going to have their sign posted in front of the library. It was sunny, but with a nice cool breeze. There were a few clouds dotting the sky all around. It was a beautiful day. Suddenly, the weather seemed to sour. The few clouds that once looked like little sheep in their pastures soon darkened, and the wind grew. At first, no one noticed. Then a few drops of rain started to fall. In the distance, thunder sounded, and like a lightning bolt, the faces of New York City turned to horror as it started to rain. People ran inside buildings as if they had never seen water before. They shied away from windows and doors as if the sudden change in weather were a monster chasing after them. The weather kept souring as clouds upon clouds piled up in the sky and a lightning bolt shot out. Fear struck the people of New York City, except one. William Barrett was waiting in a parking lot, his foot tapping impatiently on the solid concrete. He heard the commotion outside, but did not react to it as much as the others in New York City. He did not just feel fear for the sudden change in weather. He experienced fear because he felt like he could not control his own emotions. He took out his phone, waiting for a text message from his colleague and friend, Aaron Vapor. He had texted him earlier to come to the studio's parking lot, but no reply. Underneath his message, it said read. He almost did not notice the flash of light if it wasn't for the immediate roll of thunder that shook the building. He heard a siren somewhere in the distance. Panic set further into his chest as he receded into the garage, seeking shelter from the storm raging outside. In the back of his mind, he thought, I need to control my emotions. He started a breathing exercise. In for 4, hold for 4, Aaron Vapor, exhale for 4, hold for 4. He borrows money from me and didn't even offer to pay me back. Then he asked me to pay for lunch and then ditches me at work without a single ride home. Seriously? Some friend he is. Lightning struck again, closer, louder. I know I need to calm down, but it feels like I can't. A block away from the garage, Aaron felt small against the dark gray of the sky descending upon the city. He had never felt this feeling before. His heart quickened as he read the new text from William. Where are you? I've been waiting here for an hour. We really need to talk. Aaron could not understand, but the way the words sounded in his head made his heart sink. Perhaps it was the fact that it was starting to downpour. The street's water started to seep into the sidewalk, and when Aaron stepped into the spill, he squeaked in surprise. He shook his foot like a rabid dog had grappled onto it. Since there was no place for the water to go, it kept on rising. There were millions of puddles that lined the sidewalk, and Aaron squeezed past them, trying to avoid the pools, while still trying to rush towards the concrete parking lot. Aaron did not know how to respond to the text. It felt angry. No one had ever been angry at Aaron, not even a raised voice from his parents. But at the same time, the message before sounded sad. Aaron saw the parking lot and rushed towards it. As he got to the door, he saw a flash of light, and thunder came less than 2 seconds after it. Aaron covered his ears. He thought he would go deaf. He pushed through the door, his blood rushing through his veins. As he approached William, he noticed William's expression turn bitter. What is going on? What are you doing here? Aaron asked. He reached for William's shoulder, but William avoided his hand. The rain pounded on the roof of the parking garage, made hard plink sounds as it hit the edge of the railing. The parking garage was dry, but it felt damp and cold. At first, I was waiting for you to come back with my car to pick me up, William shouted the last 2 words, which startled Aaron. A lightning bolt zipped across the sky, the loud boom not far behind.
Thank you, Katie. Our next reader is Cameron Krug. Cameron.
Hi. This is a poem I wrote based off of a feeling I got walking home in the middle of the night. So it starts. Waking into this Arctic night, hugging the light stuck to my teeth. Chattering bone drips nerve end to end. The organic pillars lines like electrical wiring. Pulsating shock to revive the smooth red clay, molded, warped by your ugly, filthy, iced cold hands. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks all. And I'm going to finish with a couple of poems to pitch in, leave us with last voices. Something just happened to my photos. Got it set. I want to start with a poem by a voice we lost last year. Danielle Lego George was the poet laureate of Boston. She was a scholar, translator, editor, director of the MFA program at Lesley University. And she had written a poem that was written in another time, but I think speaks to our troubling times now. It's called A Stateless Poem. If you are born and you are stateless, if you are born and you are homeless, if your state and home are not yours and yet everything you know, what are you? Who are you? And who am I without the dark fields I walk upon, the streets I know, the blue corners I call mine, the ones you call yours? Who am I to call myself citizen and human and free? And who are you to call yourself landed and grounded and free? And who is judge enough? Who native? Who other? And who are we who move so freely without accents of identification, without skin of identification, with all manner of identification, with gold seals of approval, with stamps of good fortune, with the accident of blameless birth? Who are we to be so lucky? And I had a poem actually published on Monday in an online journal, Amethyst Review, and I thought I would read that. It is an ekphrastic poem. Joe mentioned he does those regularly. This is in response to a painting by a friend of mine, Matt Carano, and it is called Wakening, in response to a painting by Matt Carano. Wakening. Behind today's explosion of buds, their shells tossed, leaves unrolling outward, hungry for snatches of sun between rain-smudged clouds, the wintered spring decay is dark with knowing. Deep blue shadows beneath shadows feed from forest floor, from vernal pools, from shallow ponds, primordial mud, birthing yellows, blues, sharpened petals, slicing streaks of rust. Hidden nests blossom with canopies of green, twigs and vines clasping, clinging to branches, their discarded scraps swallowed into burgeoning burrows, crawling, snaking, feathering to life. I want to thank everyone for their wonderful, rich voices today. Let's hear it for all of our readers. And I teach a course called Creative Writing and Publishing, and some of my students who are editors of Dead River Review are here in the room, and we want to strongly encourage these wonderful, rich voices. Please submit your work. Fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, translations, artwork, scripts, films, music, photography, digital images of sculpture, of painting, other things. So we love your work. Dead River Review is the online literary magazine of Middlesex Community College. deadriverreview.com. Check it out. Above the food, we have some signs, including this one, and there's a QR code that'll take you to the journal. Also, we have a website with, this is the Dead River Review, what it looks like, or scrolls with different images. We have a reading coming up, Reggie Gibson, and I want to put that on your radar for April 7th in Bedford. Reggie Gibson was appointed by our governor as the first ever poet laureate of Massachusetts last May, and he's going to be reading for us. He's an amazing poet and performer. And also coming up to put on your radar, our MCC night at the Untitled Open Mic, and we have featured 2 students from Middlesex and 2 alums. One of those students you heard tonight, Elizabeth Mood, and Connor Burrell, some of you may know. Blue Catalano is a current student and one of the officers of our Creative Writing Club, Writers Wonderland Creative Writing Club here at Middlesex. And also Ez Engerman, another alum, going to be reading. So put that on the radar. I'd love to have you read and also support our other readers there. And that's the 15th of April. So our website looks like that, the QR code up front with links to our readings, our club information, and Dead River Review. So do that before you leave. Again, submit your work, and again, one more round of applause for everyone who read, and also our wonderful audience. Thanks so much. Have some more food, stick around, chat with other writers, give them a word or two about things you thought, and again, hope to see you at other events in the future.